And you can always tell, like, if you are just speaking about the things that you're doing, if they're not offering any kind of input and they're genuinely not supporting you,
Right.
they're not celebrating you, like Denise is saying, they're not genuinely celebrating you,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
then part of it is because they wish that they was in that position. Because keep in mind that there's a narrative being shared that black men is on the lowest part of the totem pole, and black women get all of these opportunities that we don't get. So the same kind of resentment that some black men have for white men or white women, some of us have that same resentment for black women. And you can see it. I mean, it's all over YouTube. Dudes make whole channels just talking shit about black women all day,
Mm-hmm.
and women, period. And my first thought is, who hurt you?
Right.
You've never met a woman like my mother, or other women that I've seen and that I know, but a lot of black men feel as if they're not getting the type of opportunities that they think they deserve, and that black women are getting all of those opportunities. It never occurs to them. Yep. Kevin Samuels. Yep. And I seen dudes getting tattoos of Kevin Samuels. Like, come on, man. But it never occurs to some dudes that if if you genuinely support and honor women in things that they're doing and supporting their vision and their goals, those women will reciprocate and honor you. It's like a lot of the work that I do. I know some people see it now and be like, damn, you do a lot of shit. A lot of stuff that I started doing was just based upon volunteer work. Just going to a local community center saying that I wanted to help the youth there and starting my own after school program and doing it consistently, and other different opportunities would come up. To this day, when I do community events, when I do different initiatives or programs, it's not a bunch of dudes there.
Mm-hmm.
Dudes is they don't look, because a lot of us think in a transactional way. What am I going to get out of it? We really don't honor and trust. And here's the thing. We think in such a rational way that if you can't count, measure, and weigh it, then it don't exist.
Mm-hmm.
But when you look at a woman by nature is more intuitive. A woman is closer to the intangible and the unseen world than we are as males and as men.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, there's a lot of things in terms of being empaths, in terms of being um, uh, wise women in our tribes who would be considered witch doctors, or even in Greek society, you have the oracles of Delphi who were women. Like, we've always sought and looked towards women because of that intuition and mother wit, as some of our ancestors in the South call it. But it's also called priori knowledge. Priori knowledge. And it's called priori knowledge because it's a form of intuition. And it's something that you can't necessarily count, measure, and weigh. It's kind of like what women say all of the time, like, oh, yeah, I knew he was cheating. They ain't got no real evidence of it. Or, yeah, I knew he was over here. I knew he was doing this, that, and the third. No physical evidence of it. You can't count, measure, and weigh it. But over time, you begin to see how what was done in the dark comes to light. And when you even look at the planet, everything that is born in this planet starts in the dark and comes to light. All of us have a belly button, and we came from a woman,
Mm-hmm.
and we started off from darkness and we came to light. So it's natural for a woman to have that intuitiveness where she can perceive things on an extra sensory level that a lot of times us as males may not recognize, and we're never taught to develop that emotional intelligence, or we're never taught to evolve in that kind of way.
Right. Right.
And that's why when you look at our societies, we've always entrusted women with having that insight. Even when you look at a lot of our tribes where we had clan mothers, and even to this day, we have our elders who a lot of times are women. That's because we recognize that. And, if we wanted to plant or harvest, we would come to women and consult them about that. But we live in a society today where that's not recognized or honored. And we're suffering from that, you know? We're
Mm-hmm.
suffering from that.
Okay.
So, a lot of the things that I'm saying is like we as males and as men, we have to be taught very early how to evolve in this kind of way, and I'm always learning. One thing I learned is that just, as males, we're typically a step behind women in terms of the evolution. And a lot of men don't want to acknowledge and admit that. It takes us longer to get our shit together
Mm-hmm.
than it does women, you know?
So, go ahead.
But
I was going to
yeah,
say, you have 3 beautiful, gorgeous daughters. But
thank
prior
you.
to becoming a father, what did it mean to protect the Black woman, and how did it change after becoming a father?
Mm. So I say before I was just as dumb as a lot of the dudes that I'm talking about right now,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And there's things that I just didn't know or I wasn't even thinking about or it wasn't even important to me. No, keep in mind that this society defines women as minorities. Now, when you look at the sex ratios, there are more women than men. So when this society says that a woman is a minority, it's not talking about numbers.
Mm-hmm.
It's talking about women in terms of being of lesser importance and significance, because that's what minor means.
Mm-hmm.
So a woman in this society is an afterthought, if that. And just like most males, I'm growing up in a society, even though I had an opportunity to see my mother, who she was, and her interacting with my father, and then also my sisters and other women that I've come in contact with. I was still learning my way, until I had my daughters, and I was entrusted with the responsibility of helping parent them to a certain degree, but then getting the fuck out the way as they got a little older. And I say get out of the way because a lot of the concerns that I had just about their growth and development were things that I had concerns about looking at them through the lens of being a boy growing up, and things that I might have struggled with and I had to learn to navigate. And I'm like, yo, they are way more evolved than me. You know, they're able to have certain type of conversations with me at a certain age that I wasn't even thinking about at their age.
Right.
So, I parented them, and I'm parenting Anusha right now because she's still in her, her preteen age years. But after a certain time period, I had to learn to get out of the way. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And and getting out of the way, I became more of a student to them
Mm-hmm.
and to learn about what was important to them, their concerns. And a lot of times as males or as men, we're never really in that position where we need to learn and we need to listen, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So a part of it changed in terms of protection is knowing things that they may not really know about this society being misogynistic and chauvinistic and some of the things that they're up against and the way in which guys may try to maneuver or interact with them. I teach them about all of that so that they're prepared
Mm-hmm.
not only by the way that I live, but they're also prepared by the things that I teach them about just navigating this landscape. And one of the things that I've always told my daughters is, and I'm talking about my eldest two, never underestimate the ignorance of males. Never underestimate the ignorance. And what I mean by that is my daughters, just like you, just like a lot of women that I know, are very highly intelligent and sophisticated, sharp, so sharp that sometimes you wonder, how the fuck could you give this dude a chance when he is that ignorant? right? And that's what I strive to communicate to my daughters. Like, never overestimate your abilities or underestimate his ignorance.
Right.
You know, by giving some guy a chance that really doesn't deserve the opportunity to even talk to you. And not because you're of more value than him, but because he really serves no purpose to you in life. And that's it. There's nothing that he can contribute to your life. Because even if you did get together with him, based upon where he's at in his growth and development, he is your child. And
Mm.
if you ever feel like that with a guy, he is your child. That's a parent-child dynamic. It can never evolve to an adult dynamic of equality. It could never evolve there, because that person will always be your child, because you always have to teach him.
Right.
You always have to teach him. And while you're still teaching him, he's never going to get to the point where he's at your stage of growth and development, because you're always still evolving.
Right. Right.
It's always going to be like this. He's always going to be behind you.
Mm-hmm.
So the only way for you to even have that relationship is to dumb yourself down and to accept him in his devolution, because he's not evolving.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You're just putting up with him and accepting him where he is, and that's dead weight, you know? And it's unfortunate, but that is the scenario with a lot of women today, that you really have to find someone that is evolved to the point where you ain't got to son him.
Right.
Because the problem is, you know, he may put up with it for a minute because he wants something from you,
Right.
but eventually he's going to learn to resent that. And that is also something that oftentimes goes back to the parent-child dynamic with his own mother, because maybe his own mother was sonning him growing up. And because he could never respond, or he could never defeat the big boss in this game, then he approaches every woman looking at that woman through the lens of never being able to match his mother's wit or his mother's power. So it becomes a rivalry.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And two, that's why dude becomes a motherfucker. Because that's how he's really looking at some women. Like, fuck my mom, I'm gonna be a motherfucker. And then when he gets with you, he gonna try to fuck the shit out of you. It's a psychological thing that a lot of dudes is dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? That we don't realize that we have going on inside of us, because you really have to be vulnerable to look at yourself in the mirror and just honestly accept where you're at in your growth and development. You know, it doesn't hurt me to be like, yo, women are more naturally evolved than us. That don't diminish me. That shit don't make me feel uncomfortable or insecure, because I know who I am, and I know where I learn most of my insights about life from. It ain't a bunch of dudes.
Right.
It ain't a bunch of dudes. It's women who I observe and who I listen to and who I watch respectfully, you know? But a lot of us have not really learned that, and we suffer behind that, you know?
Mm-hmm. You see
We suffer.
why I asked him to do this live with me, because he's throwing some game out there, ladies. So I hope y'all listening and taking note.